This is Emily Hartridge, also known as Emily Hart. She was a YouTuber that you have never heard of, who died in London on July 12th of this year. She was riding her e-scooter, and it hit a lorry, or a semi-truck if you're from the States, in a reportedly confusing roundabout. Emily died at the scene. She was 35. And why should you care? Well, her death wasn't widely publicized. She had a decent YouTube following with about 350,000 subscribers. I would describe her as Jenna Marbles light. Their life and career followed similar patterns. Both women started creating content in their 20s when they were attractive. Both were self-titled models who took vainglorious selfies and posted them on social media. They made similar vacuous and absurd content. I describe it as shock content. Both women have the same crass delivery, and both seemed as if they are, or in Emily's case was, unpleasant and callous. And just like Jenna, when Emily hit the wall, she began to go off the deep end. Earlier this year, finally realizing her fertility window was closing quickly, Emily took action. She got herself a boyfriend 8 years her junior. She also decided to undergo fertility treatments and freeze her eggs, a very expensive process that is extremely unreliable. And of course, in this day and age, where all female choices are supported and even lauded by society at large, her new boyfriend did the same, encouraging her decision. Now, he could be just a young guy looking for easy hookups, but after careful consideration, I think he's just a beta disguised as a wannabe Chad. Now, if you're familiar with my video on Jenna Marbles, you already know that she is childless and has diverted her motherly empathy onto her dogs. Emily, on the other hand, converted that empathy and energy into travel and other frivolous activities. But she couldn't defeat nature and decided to freeze her eggs after years of wasting time and putting off motherhood. So apparently, according to Emily, she decided to do this because of all the hopeless men who let her down. Emily said in this article, "After spending 8 years being let down, ghosted, and lied to by hopeless men on dating apps, I refused to miss my chance at motherhood. I'd always assumed I'd settle down and have kids when the time was right, and even when my last serious relationship ended in 2011, I didn't worry. But after 2 years of being single, I decided to try my luck with dating apps and signed up to Tinder, as some of my friends had met their partners through it." First of all, why did she wait until her 30s to consider having a family? Second of all, why did she wait 2 years to date again after 2011? Women under 35 tend to complain that they find it difficult to date. And I find that impossible to believe, especially in regards to attractive, even semi-attractive women. Being the sought-after, pursued sex, women only have to sit back and wait for the inevitable, that men will soon flock to them. I think that when women say that dating is difficult, it's an explicit attack on the character of men. What women mean is that they haven't met a single man that measures up to their extremely high standards. So instead of admitting this fact, they claim that dating is difficult, which also makes them look like a victim as well. Emily goes on to say, "At first it was fun swiping through the guys, wondering if they were worth meeting up with. But as soon as I actually started swiping right, I quickly learned about the world of ghosting, where men would show initial interest and disappear without a trace. It was frustrating, but I refused to be disheartened." Alright, first of all, women do that. When women do that en masse. The younger and more attractive the woman is on an online dating site, she is ghosting. And second of all, this is the reality of most women, because we live in an unregulated sexual marketplace. 80% of the women are pursuing the top 20% of the men, which creates a power imbalance. The top 20% of men can smash and dash ad nauseum, because women these days have nothing to offer other than sex, so they give it up early. These men then dump them for the next best thing, and the women are left feeling used and abused. Their ability to pair bond is injured just a little bit more, and they become just a little bit more crass, resentful, and unbearable. Next, Emily gives 2 accounts of dating from online dating sites. "My first Tinder date was in June with Sean. I liked him, as he seemed a bit of a laugh. Plus, his profile picture was really hot. However, when I spotted him outside the bar, my heart sunk. He looked nothing like his photos and was at least 3 inches shorter than me at 5'11". If he looked nothing like his pictures, how did you recognize him? Even though he assured me he was over 6 foot. Not wanting to be rude, I duly went on our date, but got so drunk to deal with my disappointment that I had a raging hangover the next day. That's a good way to deal with that. Here's her second account. In December 2016, I started talking to a man named Christian. He was really funny and had lovely eyes, and for the first time in ages, I allowed myself to think I might have met someone decent. But within minutes of us meeting up at the pub a few weeks later, after we'd first spoken, he gave my bum a hard squeeze. I was so appalled I chucked my wine in his face and stormed out. Alright, so more incredibly high and superficial standards exhibited by Emily. She judges men solely on their looks. This is indicative of the time. Since women can make their own living in society and the West is predictable and safe, women no longer need men for protection and provision. So instead, we are just superficial playthings to them. Emily searched for a man who was appealing physically, instead of looking for a man who is industrious and virtuous. She did the very thing that women decry men for all the time. We objectify women. Well, no, women objectify men just as much, if not more, and Emily did this here. She went on to say that her mother paid for the incredibly expensive procedure of freezing her eggs. Good going, Mom. Instead of letting Emily reap the consequences of her actions, learning a valuable lesson in the process, you reward her for her bad decisions. Much like the welfare state that rewards women for getting pregnant, the divorce courts that reward women for changing their mind, and state-funded abortion clinics that reward women for not closing their legs. And the most ironic and tragic thing of all this, Emily died driving to one of her treatments at the fertility clinic. If only she would have been responsible for her reproduction earlier in her life, she would have never died.
There were two tests that were involved. The first one is where they do a blood test and they test your AMH levels, which is your anti-Müllerian hormone. And that gives an indication of your ovarian reserve and how many eggs you potentially have left. And I could tell as soon as I walked into the room that the doctor didn't want to give me the results. And I was like, oh, fucking hell. I actually have my results on this piece of paper here. So for my age, the range is between 4.1 and it can go up to 58. Well, my results was 2. So it was obviously extremely low. I did promise myself I wasn't going to cry in this video. So, yeah. Sorry. Okay, come on. And this was because of nothing I've done. As a woman, you're born...
Personally, I'm sick and tired of hearing these stories of feminist women who waste their 20s only to regret it and try to freeze their eggs or latch on to a beta and suck them dry in their 30s. It is a waste of resources and a strain on our infrastructure to support these women who incur debt to earn a useless degree, delay or forego motherhood, and then leech off of beta males or the state in their 30s and 40s and beyond. Ironically, it is the women who mostly decry the dangers of climate change when they are the ones who are the most wasteful creatures of them all. I wanted to make this short video to warn young men about the dangers of these women and to avoid them at all costs. They will latch onto you and bleed you dry. If not through your resources for the rest of your miserable life, or through the courts when she divorces you, which is highly probable. I wanted to make this video also to warn women of what not to do in their 20s. However, women these days don't want to listen to rational arguments on how to live their lives to the fullest, so this message will inevitably fall on deaf ears. I also wanted to highlight this poor woman's contemptible life. I pity her, indeed. Death is never an easy thing. It's a terrible tragedy for Emily's family. But considering the evidence I just shared with you, it seems to me that Emily was a vapid, crass, and vain human being. She offered nothing in terms of value to the world, and she failed to fulfill her biological imperative of having children. Her lifestyle of hedonistic pursuits, a childless life, and indolence demonstrates her narcissism. She is the perfect example of the modern Western woman. In the grand scheme of things, her death means very little. However, the lifestyle she lived is the same lifestyle many millions of women in the West imitate. This issue is probably the most important issue in regards to losing the freedom-centric culture that used to dominate the Western world. This story can be used as a learning moment for women in their 20s. However, the lesson will go unheeded, and that is the true tragedy of this whole thing.